Welcome back to the Fullstack JavaScript. In this project, we will be building message board API using the Mongo database store. Before, we were using just the memory store, which was just a plain array in our memory, and every time we kill the application, we load the data. In this project, we will be connecting to the Mongo database, and as you can see, I'm using MongoLab URI. That means if you want to push this code to Heroku and you have the MongoLab add-on installed and attached to your app, you will get this magical connection string populated. And if it's undefined, you can always try this. So this is the local setup 27017 on your local host, and the database name is messages. So far so good? Okay, so let's move to the connection. So we get the connection with client.connect by providing that URI. URI should have everything we need, and then we must check for errors. This is very, very important. In Node.js, each callback, each asynchronous callback usually have this error, and then we must check manually, and if we have an error, we need to console log it, kill the process, or do something with it. Don't let it go silently, otherwise you might have some errors and you might be wondering why your application is not working. Now we're starting the server, and as you might remember, we use this pattern with if-else conditions. So first we implement the get for the /messages/list. The code is very simple. We get the collection and we type find. If you remember from the book, find in the Mongo shell and in the native MongoDB driver, that gives us the elements from the collection. So it's basically we're reading and we're querying the database. If you want to add some query, it's an object like this, for example. You can query by the name, but we don't want that. We want all messages right now. And toArray converts this database cursor to an array. We actually need an array, normal JavaScript array. We don't need database cursor. And then we use that results and we stringify it and send it back. Post a little bit more interesting. We use this request.onData. If you remember, we already used that in the previous projects. But then we have this collection.insert. As you might guess from the name, insert will create a new record. What is good about this is that MongoDB will add object ID, unique identifier, and it will come to us as this obj, object. This is the newly created object, and it will have that ID. So actually, when we write in back the response, it will not be exactly the same message that we submit, exactly the same data. It will be that data plus some additional property, which is _ID or object ID. Another cool thing to notice here is we're parsing the string. So a little bit manual work. We need to parse the data, need to convert it from buffer to a string. Then we parse using query string parse. Safe equals true, that's just a MongoDB option. You can read in the documentation more about it. And then this is just for us in case we forget that we actually need to provide the path. It's not going to work if it's just an empty URL after the domain. Then we start on a port number. So that's pretty much it with our board API. It's very lean, very small. We have only 2 endpoints. We don't have any updates or deletes. That's definitely something you would want to add if you want to create a CRUD application. So what we're going to do next, we will test this. I'm CDing into the project folder, making sure I have the files. So the name of the starting point is web now. It used to be app, it used to be server, now it's web. So let me use Node.dev. Okay, it's running, there's no errors. So it says supported endpoints, list and create. So I need to add something. I need to add messages.list.json. Let me clean the screen and I click enter. Okay. Wow, I have quite a few messages here already. They're all jumbled up, but you can see I have some records because I've been playing around with this project before. Obviously, you might have 0 messages there. If you have 0 messages, what you want to do, you want to submit a post request. You can use Postman. I've already showed you how to do that. Or you can use curl if you prefer, like me, using terminal commands. So the way you do it, you specify this flag -d, which stands for data, and then the data, it's not a JSON, it's a URL encoded data. Let's click enter. And as a response, we see this underscore ID property, which we didn't submit, but it's there. It's there because Mongo database automatically created that ID for us, and it's unique. Other interesting things to see is that it says OK1 and N1. So that's a number of records inserted, count, number of records inserted, and then you got inserted IDs. So there are a few ways, multiple ways you can get this property, ops, and then get your object from there, or you can, if you only need the ID, you can get it from inserted IDs. Also, it's a good thing to check that the number of inserted count is 1, because if it's 0, that means you didn't save. If it's 2, that's also weird, right? So let's actually submit exactly the same request and see what's happened. It's also saved it, but then let's compare the object IDs. Object IDs are different, so we would have 2 similar objects with different object IDs, but the username and message would be the same. That's totally fine, right? Because I might be just hitting send in the message board. Interesting thing about object IDs is that you can sort by them, and they would be in either chronological order or the reverse of the chronological order. So the first come, first serve, or the first come, last serve. So we just submitted the record. Now let's get the messages and see if we have them. And you can see they're at the bottom. So this is second, this is the first one. So getting messages works, submitting messages works, and then once we get them again, we see the messages that we submitted, they're actually in the database, they're persistent. So that's our message board API. It has only 2 endpoints, but it's good for now. It's enough for us to build the UI on top of this API.